Information from OCR for the DEP study Paper 2, Britain 1906 to 1918. The focus points that you need to explain are: why did the Liberal government introduce reforms to help the young, old and unemployed? How effective were the reforms? What were the arguments for and against female suffrage? How effective were the activities of the suffragists and suffragettes? How did women contribute to the war effort? How were civilians affected by the war? How effective was government propaganda during World War I? Why were some women given the vote in 1918? What was the attitude of the British people at the end of the war towards Germany and the Paris Peace Conference? Specific content that you need to know about. Reasons for the Liberal reforms. Poverty in 1906. The Children's Act. Old age pensions. Labour exchanges. The National Insurance Act. Arguments for and against female suffrage. The WSPU and the NUWSS. Their leaders. Activities and the reactions from the authorities. Women in employment during World War I. The 1918 Representation of the People's Act. Recruitment, new government powers which include Defence of the Realm Act, conscription, rationing, use of propaganda and the impact of war on civilian life, the mood of British people at the end of war and the different attitudes about what should happen to Germany. The background. At the start of the 20th century, poverty was a serious problem in Britain. Investigations by Booth and Rowntree found 1/3 of the population was living below the poverty line. Royal commissions on housing, employment and the poor law arrived at similar conclusions. Trade unions were agitating for improvements, and the growth of the Labour Party showed many people wanted change. Many young men were rejected from army service during the Boer War because of poor health. Britain's position as a great power would be threatened if the health and welfare of the population were not improved. The social insurance scheme in Germany was seen as a great success. In 1905, a Liberal government was elected as they promised to tackle the problem of poverty. The new Liberals, such as David Lloyd George, had a growing influence and were determined to tackle poverty. The Liberals worried that the Labour Party would take away their votes if they did not help the poor. From 1906 to 14, the Liberals changed the system of poor relief based on the workhouses and laid the foundations of the welfare state in Britain. Children. The School Meals Act of 1906 provided cheap school dinners for poor children. School medical inspections for children were introduced in 1907. Under the Children's Charter, laws to stop cruelty and neglect of children ended. New juvenile courts no longer sent children to adult prisons. There were borstal and a probation service set up. Begging by children was made an offence. The sale of alcohol and tobacco to children under 16 years old was forbidden. In 1908, old age pensions were introduced. People aged over 70 were paid 25p a week. Old people no longer had to rely on relatives or to go into the workhouse. Pensions were to be paid to single people and married couples. People who had been lazy or criminals did not get a pension. The sick. National Health Insurance Scheme was set up in 1911. Insured workers were to be paid 10 shillings, 50p per week for up to 26 weeks if they were too ill to work. Workers paid 4p from their wages each week. Employers paid 3p for each worker and the government paid 2p. Insured workers were allowed a free medical examination. The scheme only applied to people who earned less than £160 per year. The unemployed. Labour exchanges were set up in 1909 to help the unemployed find work and to advertise jobs. National Unemployment Insurance Scheme of 1911 provided insurance for workers in trades where temporary unemployment was common. Workers, employers and the government each paid 2.5p each week. The unemployed were paid 35p per week for up to 15 weeks. Opposition to the Liberal reforms. Some councils did not approve of free school meals and it had to be made compulsory in 1914. The Children's Charter was opposed because the government was now meddling in family life. Many people believed that help from the government would encourage laziness. Pensions might stop people from actually saving in their old age. Some doctors opposed the Health Insurance Act because it didn't pay enough, and friendly societies and insurance companies thought they would lose business. The Conservatives objected to the new taxes that had to be raised to pay for the reforms. Some employers objected to paying for workers' insurance. In 1909, the House of Lords rejected the People's Budget. This led to the Parliament Act of 1911, which reduced the power of the House of Lords and stopped them from interfering in money bills.